Welcome to today's webinar for students accepted into Penn State's Master of Public Policy program. First of all, congrats on your acceptance and welcome to Penn State. I'm Whitney Sheridan, Director of Communications with the School of Public Policy at Penn State. I'll be moderating today's webinar along with our presenters. We have Stephen Moczydlowski, our Enrollment and Advising Manager. Welcome, Stephen. Hi, Stephen.
Thank you, Whitney. Thanks for having me.
Also with us is Caitlin Reber. Caitlin has been one of our integrated undergraduate graduate degree students who recently graduated, and she is now a full-time MPP student as of this summer. We'll talk more about her internship that she's getting ready to start next week in a few moments, and we'll hear more from Caitlin about her experience. Thanks for joining us, Caitlin.
Hi, thank you for having me.
We also have our Director of Professional Development and Student Engagement, Catherine Baumgardner, with us. Catherine is also an associate teaching professor, and she has more than 30 years of experience in public policy. So thanks so much for joining us, Catherine.
Well, thank you so much. It's great to be here today.
Before I turn things over to our panelists, I want to let everyone know if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the Q&A in the chat window, and we'll respond to them throughout the presentation as we have time, and definitely at the end of the brief presentation. If you'd like to reach out to us directly, feel free to email publicpolicy@psu.edu anytime, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. And now I want to give you a brief overview of what we're going to be talking about today. We will provide a brief overview of the Master of Public Policy degree program. We'll talk about why you should choose Penn State for your MPP. We're going to introduce our primary teaching faculty. We'll talk about career options and income expectations for grads. We'll talk about some of the unique support that our particular program provides to our students. We'll break down next steps in the admissions process since you're now an accepted student. We'll discuss financial aid and tuition. We'll also talk about housing, and we'll talk about life at Penn State. And of course, we're going to take your questions. Once again, remember you can use that Q&A module anytime throughout the presentation. And remember, you can email us at publicpolicy@psu.edu. Before we get into explaining the program, I think we should provide an update on the university's plans for instruction. Stephen, can you tell us about the current status?
Yes, I can, Whitney. So at the moment, the university is still deciding what they will be doing regarding fall semester. Summer semester, as all of them have been moved remotely. But there are a couple scenarios that could potentially happen for fall semester. Scenario A is obviously that we are back on campus in fall and operating normally with everybody in class and in residence. There is the possibility that the start of fall semester is remote and then students move in at a later portion and classes are then offered remotely at the beginning and then in person later on once more information is available. And then the third option is that we will continue to operate remotely for fall semester. Now, the university is expecting to make a decision on this no later than June 15th. The website that's listed here will provide you with any information as it becomes available from the university regarding how things will operate. But regardless of what happens, we will be having classes in the fall. You will be able to start your MPP degree. The question is just whether we will be in residence or remote.
And I'm going to put Caitlin on the spot right now. We haven't been talking about this in any of our other webinars, I don't think, but since we have transitioned, and it was a very quick transition to courses online, Caitlin, what was that like, and how did the rest of the spring semester go for you as an MPP student and finishing up your senior year as an undergrad?
It was interesting. I mean, obviously this was new to everyone. Of course, there were some kinks that were worked out throughout the, especially in the beginning of the transition to online learning, but it was really fine. Like my policy classes had planned for either projects as finals or like take-home finals anyway. So in that sense, it wasn't very different. And then, I mean, lectures on Zoom it was like kind of like being in person, but a little different. So I think it went as smoothly as it could have gone given the circumstances.
And you still have access to all of your professors and
It was like normal, really easy to get a hold of them. Like if we had any questions, just sent them an email. I think they were holding their office hours still too, or we could just schedule a time. So it felt the same, but obviously a little different.
And we're going to talk about your internship in a little bit, so stick around for that. And we'll get to that in just a moment, because I know that your internship's going to start remotely, but hopefully you'll be in person for that too, so stick around. Thanks, everybody. So we want to talk about, we know that you guys applied and were accepted into the program, so you're familiar with it, but we want to give you a little bit of a refresher on the structure of the program. So Stephen, can you walk us through that a little bit?
Absolutely. So the program is structured to be a 43 credit professional master's degree that's delivered on campus in University Park. The way that the curriculum in the program is structured is that year one, students will be primarily completing their public policy courses. And then in year two, students are able to then do more specialization activities. And then in between years one and years two is when you will be completing your internship, which Caitlin's getting ready to start hers. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on. But the specialization area is really where you get to focus essentially where your interests are within public policy and gain a better understanding so that you can go out and advance in that specific field area of your interest. And as you can see on this slide, we have multiple specialization areas already created that have approved courses that are shared either between us and a different department with on campus or run specifically through another department because of the size and scope in which we have the ability to offer those courses. But if you're looking at this list and you're not seeing a specialization that aligns with your interests, you do have the capacity to create your own, and that's done just by working with me to make sure that we can find 4 courses that make up that area. So that's the general structure of essentially how the program operates and how everything is delivered. And then you will be doing a capstone project in your final semester that'll kind of bring together everything that you've done and learned over the last year and a half in the program.
And Stephen, I think we had a question the other day for one of our prospective student webinars where we had someone ask, when do you decide on your specialization? When does that happen?
Yeah, so students don't have to come into the program knowing exactly what they want their specialization to be. You have time to do some research, talk to faculty, explore options, because you don't have to start scheduling for fall of your second year until around March of spring semester of year one. So you have all of fall semester to do some research and think about what you might want to be doing for your specialization. And even the beginning of spring semester, you have some flexibility in time. So that is when you have to make the decision. I usually tell students they're going to want to have an idea by end of January, early February, so that we can meet and plan out how your second year schedule will look based off your specialization.
And we do actually have a question about this. Are we allowed to choose more than one specialization? So great question.
Yes and no. Yes, if they have a similar kind of end goal to them. Like, for instance, if you were thinking that you wanted to focus, like, let's say on like international policy, but more on an economic side, we could look at getting, courses that essentially would combine to form that. So there are ways to potentially combine two, but to do 2 separate specializations would require you to take 4 additional courses to the tune of 12 credits, which would drastically expand the time that you would have to be in the program. So that's where that yes and no answer kind of comes in. And if there are 2 areas that you're considering, I would recommend reaching out to me and we can talk about how we could potentially combine them if possible, or how we might be able to find courses that might have some kind of intersection between the 2 areas.
Great question. And I want to remind everybody, you can also reach out to us via email, publicpolicy@psu.edu. And Stephen, our enrollment and advising manager, is actually the person who answers those emails, and he can schedule a one-on-one conversation with you via Zoom or via phone to advise you about questions such as those, and maybe talk to you a little bit more in depth about the curriculum, about some of the faculty, and answer any additional questions that you might have as well. We also want to encourage those questions too for right now and throughout this entire presentation. Thanks, Stephen. Is there anything else that we want to note about the curriculum? Did you talk about the credits at all?
Yes, I did. Yep.
Okay.
I think that's it in terms of the structure and the curriculum.
I do want to ask Caitlin, why did you decide to pursue the MPP?
I think what drew me to the MPP was the flexibility of the degree. I wasn't really sure last year when I went to an information session about this program, what I wanted to do when I graduated. And this seemed like a really good opportunity to kind of get my feet in the water of being able to explore different opportunities, because you're not really stuck to one path. My other option in my mind was law school, and with that, obviously you go to law school, you become an attorney. There are some other things that you can do with that, but I felt like the MPP degree was much more flexible, and I do have such a passion for trying to make widespread change and public policy in general, so this seemed like the better option.
Great. Well, with that, I want to talk about why someone might choose Penn State. So you're watching right now and you've been accepted into the MPP program at Penn State, but why should you choose Penn State? Maybe you've applied to other programs. What makes Penn State the one for you? So, Stephen, what are some of the program benefits? And then I'm going to ask Caitlin her thoughts on that.
So there's a lot of benefits and a lot of reasons why you should choose our MPP program here at Penn State. One of the nice things is that we're a smaller program at the moment. So the program size is smaller. Our first cohort was 15 students. We don't expect to be much larger than 20 for this incoming cohort as well. What's nice about that is that it gives you a lot of opportunities to connect one-on-one, not just with faculty, but with Catherine and myself, where everyone is very easily accessible, and having a smaller program allows us to do that and really work with you one-on-one to make sure you stay on track towards what you want to do with this degree. Another big reason to choose us is that, as we talked about on the last slide, the specialization flexibility, the ability to really choose what you want to focus on top of learning the basic public policy curriculum that you need to go out and be a policy analyst. The vibrant student life at Penn State. Penn State is a very large university, but there's ways to make that feel smaller because there's a lot of different things that you can do to carve out your own little niche within that large community. But because of the size, there's always something going on. There's always things to do or be involved in, not just within the university, but in the community of State College as well. And then we have expert faculty that have specializations and research interests across multiple different disciplines, which we'll kind of cover a little bit on the next few slides. And then because of the size of Penn State, we have a lot of different resources that are out there for students to take advantage of. So there's a lot of support options that are there to make sure that you're successful while you're here. And then one of the biggest reasons to pick Penn State is we have the largest active dues-paying alumni association in the world. And that allows you to have a massive network that you can tap into no matter where you go in the country or across the globe, that you can immediately connect with for help with career or just adjusting to a new area. There's Penn State alumni chapters in every major city in the United States and in most major cities across the world. So that is a great benefit to being a Penn State student.
Caitlin, you were an undergraduate student here at Penn State, but a lot of the members of your cohort were not. They came from out of state. You're also an out-of-state student. What were some of the reasons that you heard from them as far as why they chose Penn State? Or why would you tell other prospective students some of the reasons to choose Penn State?
Yeah, I think for some of the students who came from different universities for undergrad, I've heard definitely, like Steven said, the alumni network is huge. Even though this is a new program, there are tons of alumni who would have loved to have had a program like this. And regardless of what grad program you're in, Penn State alumni are going to be supportive no matter what. So I think that was huge. And then also specifically for the program, definitely the program size was, for me too, a huge drawing point, because it's for undergrad, it was a little intimidating with so many undergrad students and like taking classes in all different areas. I wasn't always taking crim classes to get a hold of professors or go to office hours, because it was probably a professor I would have once and never see again. But with this program, I mean, it's so easy to get in touch with any of the professors or any staff or faculty. So that was huge, because I was really nervous about grad school, and especially doing the IUG, having to take some grad classes during my last year of undergrad. So I think that was also a huge thing for me, and I think some other students in the program too. But I think with just Penn State, when I was like applying for undergrad and then I chose Penn State, I think it was definitely the size of the school. I wanted to go to a big school and have a real college experience, but at the same time, there's a really strong sense of community at Penn State. And like Steven said, it doesn't have to feel like a huge school, especially when you're in grad classes. It feels a lot smaller. So
Great. Well, if anyone has questions for Caitlin, for Steven, we're going to hear from Catherine in a few moments about some of our student resources and about the career options for students, for grads and the internship process. Please ask them in the chat, in the Q&A chat. But we want to introduce our faculty as well. We have an extensive faculty list, as well as some new faculty who will be joining us this fall. So, Steven, talk to us a little bit about our faculty.
Yeah, so as I was mentioning previously, we have faculty who have a lot of different interests from both their research side, what they do outside of, you know, just policy, and then also where their interests and research fall in terms of public policy along with their experiences. So over the next couple of slides, you'll get to see a couple different categories in which our faculty kind of fall into in terms of policy areas. The areas that are listed on these slides are not all of the policy areas that our faculty have experience in, but these are the areas that NASPA, which is the accrediting body for all professional and policy affairs schools, evaluates policy programs. So we wanted to demonstrate where our faculty fall in terms of the policy areas of interest and how it relates to the accreditation that we will be receiving through NASPA. And as you can see, we have a lot of different areas, from environmental policy to health policy and management, policy leadership. And as we go through, you'll be able to see where all those are. And if you want to learn more about specific individual faculty members and their interests, the full bios are up on our website. So if you go into publicpolicy.psu.edu and you click on people, it'll show you all of our faculty, and you'll be able to explore in more depth where, you know, their interests lie along with their expertise. And then if you find ones that connect really well with what you're thinking, you can always reach out to them or to me to make a connection so that you can talk with them more in depth.
Caitlin, I know that you had an opportunity to work with some of our faculty one-on-one on research, specifically our director, Lillard Richardson. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that was a really great experience this whole year. I was lucky enough to be Lillard's graduate research assistant. He wasn't like specializing in criminal justice policy. That's not really his area, but he does so much. He's really interested in state governments and their policies. So I did a lot of research on marijuana policy throughout the 50 states, from just like what their policies are with arrests and misdemeanors and felonies and whatnot, and just a lot of research on that. And then once this all hit, the COVID-19, and then everything transitioned online, he had me research quarantine policies. I didn't do every state, but I did the states that were hardest hit toward the beginning. So that was really interesting, and definitely not something that I thought I would have been interested in, but I guess given the exigence of it, it was really cool to be able to see all of the different policies, but that was a really great experience for sure.
And we have a lot of our, the members of our cohort are working one-on-one with faculty on research. So that's something that a lot of our students have the opportunity to do. As Stephen mentioned, you're seeing a lot of the policy areas that our accrediting institute, NASPA, looks at when they're making the evaluation on different universities, when they're looking to accredit a university. But our faculty's areas of research are varied, and many of them right now are obviously focusing on policy issues related to what's happening around COVID-19. We've had Simon Hayter specifically deals with health policy and politics, and this week alone he's had several articles come out, one specifically related to job loss and how job-based health insurance is being impacted by what's happening right now. He's also talking about the failures and successes in U.S. readiness for the coronavirus crisis. Also, Chris Whitko, who deals with social policy, is talking about the reputation of states and how they've handled the crisis and how that will impact people's perceptions of states and state governments. So a lot of our faculty deal with a lot of different policy issues, and their areas of research are vast, but it's something I think that our students have found very interesting and have found themselves drawn to different faculty members and their areas of research, certainly. And that's something to go to our website and check out and learn about what they're studying. And as Stephen mentioned before, not only the areas that our specific members of faculty study and the areas of specialization that we list on our website are available to our students to study, but the entire campus is open to our students to select from as far as the faculty that they work with when they're designing a specialization. So we want to remind you of that. So you can design your own specialization. It's not just based on our faculty or that list of specializations that we have. So we also want to talk about career paths and internships. So you probably understand the value of the MPP degree and may even have a career goal in mind since you've applied for the MPP program, but we want to reinforce the value of that degree. And the Master of Public Policy program is unique because it's a professional degree. I want to bring Catherine Baumgardner, our Director of Professional Development and Student Engagement, into the conversation. Catherine, tell us about employment opportunities for MPP grads and talk to us about the MPP degree. Is it worth it? Will this boost earning power?
Sure. First of all, I want to say congratulations to those of you on the call for being accepted. And I want to say that I sincerely hope I have the opportunity to work with each of you individually. I think public policy right now is more exciting than it's ever been. I think with everything happening around us in the world today, public policy is one of those things that we assume will be in place, and we don't really know, or people don't really appreciate public policy until the system gets tested. And then you find out pretty quickly what's working and what's not working. My specialty area is health policy, but my area of interest is really leadership and organization development. So I've been having a bit of a field day watching what's happening and being a part of the conversations about how do we better prepare ourselves as a population for what's happening. And so I give you that information because it really tells you that your career path is endless in a public policy area. You could certainly be working with as an analyst or working for government affairs. You could be a consultant. You could be analyzing data, looking at demography, and so many other ways. So different employers, different sectors, whether it's healthcare or government or public or private organizations, there are all sorts of opportunities out there for you. What's interesting to me is that the persons with an MPP degree see about a 19,000 difference in salary, and have often shown about a 31% increase in salary over just having a bachelor's degree. The ranges are broad, anywhere between 40 and 125,000, with a median of about 70,000. But that really depends on the sector that you choose to go into, whether you're public or whether you're private, whether you're government or whether you're healthcare. I often advise people, follow your heart, follow what you love, follow where you want to make the impact, and the salary follows. The real important message there is that the investment does pay itself off pretty quickly with the degree.
And Caitlin, I know you have your internship lined up that we're going to talk about in just a few moments, but any career goals in mind for you? We talked about all these sectors and potential employers, but any big career goals when you graduate in 2021?
I'm not sure. I've definitely thought about going the government route or foreign service, but I definitely think since my internship is with a nonprofit, I'm looking at that route right now, more the advocacy part of public policy. So I'm really excited to see if I like it with my internship.
Great. So with that, we want to talk about resources and student support. We have mentioned, again, this is a professional program, but one of the things that our program in particular provides is a lot of support that you might not see with other programs. So Catherine, talk to us a little bit about the resources and student support that we provide.
Sure. I mean, our goal when you finish the program is that you leave job ready. And the internship and the capstone project are wonderful ways to do that. You just heard Caitlin say her internship is in the not-for-profit sector, and she's wanting to see what it's like and whether she'll like it or not. And that's really what you use an internship for. What we do with the internship is give you the opportunity to apply the theory, apply what you're learning in the classroom, and see how it really plays out in the real world. So it's that applied learning, that applied knowledge, and it's a great place to test out, ask a lot of questions, and sort of be a sponge. Students are responsible for securing their internships, but we do give you a tremendous amount of support, including always being on the lookout for internships that might be of interest to you while you're doing your own research, because we really believe in an individualized approach. It's not one
I'm
size
going to interrupt. I'm going to put you on the spot for a second, because I know that almost every single one of our students right now has an internship secured, right?
That is correct.
and not every program can say the same thing.
Correct. And that's because of a lot of hard work on the part of the students and a part of the program and the internship sponsors who are, when we come to them and say, hey, can we work something out from a remote perspective? Right now with COVID, a lot of programs are facing 50% or less of their students are getting internships, and we are getting really close to 100%. And I expect that we will be fully placed before we start into the summer. So but that doesn't happen by accident. That happens with helping to do resume reviews, helping to support the application process, cover letter writing, interview practice, and making that pivot from what was the internship in-person interview to becoming very facile interviewing virtually and now working virtually. And we've built a lot of support documents, and Whitney and I both coach and are available for coaching in terms of how do you set up your microphone and how do you set up your lighting in your space. So that kind of getting the internship piece is important. And then while you're in the internship, you're also taking a course. And so that's a course that I actually moderate with you. And so I work with every single internship student so that we're developing good goals for the internship and that you end up with meaningful work. And then how are we connecting the work that you're doing to the insights that you gain on a weekly basis, and then ultimately culminating in a project and having a very open evaluative discussion back and forth between you, the intern, and the sponsoring organization. And with all luck, a lot of that work then pivots itself right into a capstone experience, which allows you to apply everything that you've learned. And so all along the way, we're working to refine your leadership skills through, and I actually teach a leadership development course. It's a great elective or a specialization course that you can take. And the idea behind that is not only do I have the skills, but do I have the ability to behave like a professional? Do I understand what I bring as a leader to the table, and how do I leverage that kind of skill to be the most effective that I can be? And also to that piece, I want to speak to that piece because we also bring in other professionals for you to be exposed to. So people in the MPP field and our other Master of Public or public administration grads from previous years of Penn State. And so we're always looking for who are people that you can talk to about careers, and how can you build that stepping stone? How can we leverage that alumni network that truly does work in a way that when you're filtering through resumes, and I've done this, if I see a Penn State grad, I'm going to talk to that person because they're a Penn State grad and I know what they bring to the table, and I know others behave in much the same way in the professional world. So yeah, we're very individualized. We kind of meet you where you are, and we bring you to a level that when you walk out of when you graduate, when you cross that stage virtually or for real, you're ready to go. And that's really our goal.
Great. So we've teased it here. Caitlin, what will you be doing this summer with your internship? Where will you be and what will you be doing?
So I was lucky enough to secure an internship with RAIN, which is an anti-sexual violence organization. And it was originally going to be in DC, but luckily they shifted it for all the interns to be remote, at least the ones that I'll be working with. So that was really, really great. I'm very excited to be able to have this opportunity. And I'm going to be working with their Speakers Bureau, and that's their department that connects with survivors and shares their stories. I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to be doing. I start on Monday and I have an orientation, but I think it'll be a lot of kind of administrative work, helping out with their newsletter, community outreach, corresponding with their members, but regardless, I'm very excited.
And we're excited to follow you this summer and see what's going on. So, Stephen, this one's for you. You've been accepted. What are the next steps?
Yeah, so next steps, now that you have been offered admission, the first step is to accept your offer. This lets us know that you are strongly considering attending. After you've accepted your offer, if you are planning on enrolling for fall, you do want to make sure that you are reaching out to me to set up an advising appointment so we can talk about how to get you enrolled, how to get you scheduled for your classes for fall, and start talking about orientation week prior to fall semester and everything that might entail, whether we're on campus or remotely. It's going to be happening. And also, if you haven't already, you will want to begin working on securing housing for the coming year. There are some resources that we'll talk about in a little bit to assist with that. But you can always refer back to your acceptance email. That has a lot of the resources that we're about to cover. And then start preparing for orientation week and fall semester. So those are essentially the next steps to take. And I'm happy to meet with all of you one-on-one to help you begin that process.
And if anyone has questions before starting this process, they can reach out to you as well, correct?
Absolutely, yes. You can reach out to me at any time.
Here's a question. What does the scheduling process look like if you are in the integrated degree program and have already scheduled classes for the fall? Great question. And Caitlin just finished the IUG program. So Stephen, why don't you tackle this one, and then maybe we'll ask Caitlin another question about the IUG program. I didn't realize we had any IUG students in here.
So the scheduling process for IUG students is a little bit different. Obviously, if you've already scheduled your fall semester in terms of what you need for undergrad, if you haven't met with me and your undergraduate advisor yet, you're going to want to do that because there are specific policy courses that you're going to want to take in the fall that will either dual count between your degrees or count specifically towards your graduate requirements. And so there is a specific sequence that we want you to take those courses because of doing the integrated accelerated option. And so if you haven't had an appointment with me yet about what to take for fall semester from the IUG, you're going to want to make sure that we get something scheduled because you might have to move a few things around depending on what you already have in place for fall. But usually not, because our classes tend not to conflict too much with undergraduate courses, but we do want to make sure that we're looking at all of that before we get too close to the start of fall semester.
And Caitlin, I've asked you this many times in our webinars, and we did have 4 students, 4 of our IUG students just graduate. But Caitlin, tell us, what was it like with your senior year, juggling beginning your master's classes, juggling the workload. How did you find it easing into the master's program?
I was definitely really nervous. I didn't know what to expect of grad classes. I think I obviously got used to it because I had to, and I was easing myself into classes, which was one thing that I really enjoyed about the IUG, that I could kind of I took a couple at a time, and so I'm very prepared for next year doing full-time grad classes, but it's different. I don't know. It's something you have to get used to. Grad classes are just different. They're once a week. The policy classes are at night, which was kind of nice. So just ending your day. It's not, well, I did have some 8 a.m. ones this past semester, which was a little rough some days, but they're just different. The workload, it's a lot, but it's not unmanageable, even with other undergrad classes. But I think I was very appreciative of the fact that I was easing into the grad classes, because I was really nervous about that and I didn't know what to expect. So
Great. So, Stephen, tell us about tuition and funding.
So we understand that a graduate degree is an investment, and there are a lot of costs associated to it. So we want to make sure that you're getting connected to the necessary resources to help you pay for this degree, and then make sure that you're getting access to everything that you need before you get here. And so one of the first things that you will want to do is, depending on whether you're in state or out of state, you're going to want to review what tuition looks like on a semester by semester basis. And that can be done at tuition.psu.edu. You can also use the tuition calculator to see exactly, what it will cost depending on your individual situation. They ask specific questions that'll give you a nice breakdown of what it will look like for fall and spring. And then the other thing is to begin working with the student aid office. So if you plan on utilizing federal aid in any way, you're going to want to make sure that you're talking to our student aid representatives so that they know that you have everything on file, and you begin that process early so that there's no hiccups or bumps in the road as you start fall semester. And those links to those can also be found within your acceptance letter as well. And then on top of that, there are other opportunities. One of the nice things about how we have our courses structured is that, as Caitlin was saying, the majority of them are in the evening or late afternoon. And this is done by design to give our students plenty of time to pursue work opportunities or work study opportunities on campus. So we get notification of all sorts of other kind of funding options, work study positions, research positions that come available across multiple different departments and units within Penn State. And as we receive those, we send them out all the time right away to all of our students, so that if it fits with something that you want to do, you have the opportunity to pursue it. So that's another option that's out there to help students in terms of funding and financing this degree, on top of everything that already exists through student aid in the federal government.
And I want to point out, you can reach those links if you go to our website, publicpolicy.psu.edu, and click on apply there on that page. So you can find links to tuition.psu.edu and studentaid.psu.edu. So what options do students have for housing? Stephen.
So there are a lot of different housing options available to undergrad and graduate students. The university does offer some limited graduate housing, and there is a process for qualifying and applying for that, and that can be found within the housing resource link that you see here, and also in the letter. But then there are a lot of other outside of campus housing options. So whether it's in downtown State College or around the outskirts of town, there are a lot of different essentially apartment complexes and units that are specifically designed for students. And those can be found here on the Student Affairs Off-Campus website as well, along with just doing some general research into different options. The nice thing about State College and the university is that pretty much all of the apartment complexes that are specifically designed for students, there's buses that run regularly from them to campus. So you don't have to worry about commuting with a car or some other way. The university does have buses that run regularly. And I know that Caitlin, having been an undergraduate student, now a graduate student, has gotten to experience all sorts of different levels of housing at Penn State and can probably talk a little bit more in depth about that whole experience than I can, since I'm years and years and years removed from when I was looking for housing at Penn State.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Caitlin, you've been here, you know State College. Any suggestions, any tips?
Yeah, I think housing is something that's really intimidating, and you hear a lot of people say, like, you have to do it early, but I think it was my freshman year, my housing fell through with some roommates, and then I had to find housing in like March, and I thought that I was just not going to be able to, but I did, and quite easily. So you just have to do some searching. There are so many different companies who own apartments downtown, and like Steven said, off, like not in the downtown area, but those even aren't that far. So it's definitely intimidating, but it's not as bad as it seems. You'll definitely be able to find something. It might just take a little bit of searching, but I mean, there will be plenty of housing, I'm assuming. And I don't know, we don't know what the fall semester is going to look like, but so.
And more is being built.
Yeah, exactly.
Around
They're constantly building apartments
Always
downtown.
For true. So life at Penn State, you know, this is your quintessential college town in Happy Valley. Caitlin, talk to us about what it's like to be a graduate student. You're about to be the full-time graduate student. But you know Penn State. What have you told members of your cohort, especially those who were new to the area, about campus life? Did you tell them about must-see things or events that they had to see, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot to do in State College, even for grad students. I know for undergrad, there are like 900 something clubs to join. I don't know how many there are for grad students. I went to the orientation. That was a while ago, but there are definitely still clubs and organizations you can join as a grad student. But even outside of that, just like walking around campus or in the hub, there are always flyers that have like little events or like movie showings downtown, or just so many different things. You can start an IM sports team and do that some nights. Like, there are just endless opportunities, even for a seemingly isolated town in the middle of Pennsylvania. But I would definitely say, like, in the fall when the weather's nice, they have a farmer's market, I think on Tuesdays and Fridays, which is really nice. I mean, there's movie theaters on Tuesdays. There's $5 movie tickets. That didn't break the grad student budget, so that was always fun to go to. But I mean, there's definitely a lot, and anyone can find something. If you like the bar scene, there's tons of bars and fun places to eat. So I mean, it might seem like there wouldn't be much to do just looking at a map and seeing where State College is in Pennsylvania, but I promise you there will be something for everyone.
Steven, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Caitlin did an excellent job explaining about all the different, opportunities for students to experience life at Penn State. I think the other big thing is there are a lot of different events and things that come to town. I mean, the Bryce Jordan Center, which houses men's and women's basketball, also hosts a lot of big time names in music and performance. So we get a lot of your most current artists that come in and perform big concerts there. I know that, the WWE comes in periodically and hosts events. We have all sorts of like different things that you wouldn't expect that come here and perform because of of, the university and the town. And then the town itself has a lot of different events that students can participate in. There's Arts Fest in the summer, which is a wonderful thing that goes on. As Caitlin was saying, there's the farmers market, but there's all sorts of ways that you can get involved. And then on top of it, if you love the outdoors, State College is a great place to be. We are surrounded by all sorts of different state parks that are just beautiful to go and explore. So there really is something for everybody, regardless of what your interests might be.
Great. So if anyone has any questions, now is the time to ask them. We're about to finish up here, and we'd love to tackle any last minute questions. Of course, we want to also remind you that you can email us anytime at publicpolicy@psu.edu, and be sure to set up a one-on-one appointment with Stephen if you'd like. He's happy to talk you through any more of the process if you have any additional questions with him. Other than that, we hope that you'll join us in the fall semester if you'll accept our and be admittance into the program. We'd love to see you. It doesn't look like we have any more questions at this time, but we really appreciate you for joining us today. And again, we want to welcome you into the program and congratulate you on your acceptance into Penn State's MPP program. And with that, it looks like we don't have any more questions, but we do want to encourage you to follow us on social media, and be sure again to check out our website, publicpolicy.psu.edu. You can download our brochure, check out all of the curriculum, look at our faculty bios, and again, email us anytime with questions. With that, we want to thank you once again for joining us, and we hope to see you next fall.